Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, you know him from his role as drunken mall Santa attacking an elf at the Independence Center, my brother Mike.
Hey, but I did wonders for those kids' self-esteems, damn it.
Yeah, right. They now know they can grow up to be a drunken mall Santa
That's
punching an
right.
elf. Yeah.
Plus, I taught them a little bit about keeping your left up,
You do want to do this. You gotta, they'll get other lessons from their parents. Mike's going to show them how to scrap, and so. Yeah, that's exactly what we need. I'll tell you what the Royals needed. They needed to make some moves, and that's what they did. And that's what we're going to spend today's episode talking about because there's a lot of interesting things happening in Royal Land. On this week's episode, we're going to first discuss the Isaac Collins, Nick Mears trade, which I know everybody is tuning in to hear about. We're going to talk a little bit about the Lane Thomas signing. Remember, we also got another outfielder this last week or so. And then we're going to rejoice over the extension of Maikel Garcia, the Royals wrapping him up. A lot of maneuvers to talk about. Hopefully, we'll be able to dig into that quite a bit. But if you would like us digging into it even more, as I did this morning when I posted something on Isaac Collins already, you should subscribe to our Substack. It's royalsweekly.substack.com. An extra $5 a month gets you tons of extra content. We've been doing weekly episodes for the people paid subscribers of our Substack all this whole off season. And so they get that every week. You get an extra article every week and all that sort of stuff. royalsweekly.substack.com. We really appreciate any support you can give us. Also, make sure if you don't want to invest, rate and review us on all the different podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcast, YouTube, all that stuff. We love getting ratings. We love hearing reviews. We love hearing from you on YouTube comments and in Apple Podcast reviews. So make sure you're leaving those as well, and we read them right here on the show so we can have a nice, fun interaction. Mike, what household chores do you refuse to do yourself?
Let's see, window cleaning. There's a lot of them. It's a long list, but window cleaning, pressure washing, and most importantly, gutter cleaning.
And why is that?
Because each has the potential to wreck me both physically and emotionally.
Especially emotionally. If you're wise like Mike, reach out to the professionals at Window Wolf for all your window cleaning, gutter cleaning, and pressure washing needs. Window Wolf is a locally operated small business with all the professional know-how to keep your feet on the ground and your house or business shining bright. I've known the owner of Window Wolf for years, and I can tell you there's no one more reliable for high-quality service. Just hung out with him last night. Excellent dude. Plus, Window Wolf is revolutionizing home maintenance with their new instant price calculator, which gives you a free quote without a home visit or entering a bunch of your personal information. Window Wolf is making the process easy and the price affordable. For a limited time only, you can actually get 50% off when you book using their instant pricing calculator. Just visit windowwolf.com. That's windowwolf.com and use the code Royals50. That's Royals50 when using that instant price calculator, and you save big bucks on quality service.
I haven't seen a deal that good since I bought a lightly used Tamagotchi for $2 from the kid down the street with dirt all over his face.
Mike has a lot of real rich characters in his neighborhood.
Jeb, smart. I think, was his name.
Yeah, we know him. Be smart. Let the pack handle your pains with Window Wolf. If you follow the Royals Weekly Twitter account, you know that I named 28-year-old left fielder / utility player, whatever you want to describe him as, Isaac Collins, a good trade target for the Royals about 2 days ago when it was reported that the Brewers were looking to move some of their outfield depth. About 12 hours after that, news broke that the Royals had in fact traded left-handed reliever Angel Zerpa for Collins and right-handed reliever Nick Mears. Collins made his MLB debut in 2024, but didn't really get a chance to break out or anything until last season when he hit .263 with a .368 on base and .411 slugging in 441 plate appearances, mostly in left field. Collins put up a 122 weighted runs created plus, which was better than every Royals hitter not named Bobby Witt Jr. Think about that. He was better than Maikel Garcia last year. He was better than Vinny Pasquantino last year. Wild, right? That all sounds great. We like that. We like his versatility. He's an above-average fielder in a bunch of different places as well. But the best news is Collins has a very good approach at the plate, hanging a 12.9% walk rate against a 21.1% strikeout rate. His biggest downside is as a hitter is an inability to square balls up and put them in play really hard. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. He has plenty of bat speed, though, and so his hard hit numbers, though his hard hit numbers and exit velocities weren't great, that just means he might have a little cap on his potential and maybe a little bit of regression possibility next season. Mike, that's a lot of information about Isaac Collins. Hopefully, you're ready to answer this question. What do you think of him as a player?
A lot of information, but presented so well. As a player, I'm excited, honestly. And I knew nothing about Isaac Collins. You sent me a text last night about it. And I go, man, I don't know anything about him. And you were just already, I could tell through like 5 words you've written, okay, Mark's really giddy about this. What's the big deal? And when you said they give up Angel Zerpa, I'm like, well, the guy can't be that much if they only gave up Zerpa. This guy looks like he's got some serious potential and that the floor is pretty high, which I like. We talked last year about really what this lineup needs. I mean, yes, it could certainly benefit from a little bit more consistent run production in the middle of the lineup, but what they really need is a longer lineup. They need depth, and I think he, at the very least, his floor provides that. I don't think you're going to get a lot of big power production. His power numbers actually will probably come down a little bit playing in Kaufman versus playing in Milwaukee, but I think he's a really solid player that you have 5 years of control of. Like, that's an everyday player with 5 years of control, and you didn't give up anything more than a relief pitcher. I'm digging this cat.
Yeah, me too. You're right. It's that high floor that brings a ton of value to a team like the Royals that doesn't have 9 quality hitters in it that you really want to sort of see in a lineup. You know, like they have good defenders, they have some of that stuff, but like 6, 7, 8, and 9 in their lineup, or at the very least 7, 8, and 9 is not strong enough to really carry you. In fact, the floor of that before Collins got here could be really low. We remember MJ Melendez. We remember the days of 70 weighted runs created plus for you in left field, right? Like, or lower even sometimes. You can't play that and still have a lineup that doesn't have essentially automatic outs in it. And so that consistency that he can bring with that advanced approach, I think is hugely valuable, makes him a great fit. And then you throw on top of that other great fits like a lot of controllable years, defensive versatility. This makes him a good fit for anyone. But the Royals had such desperate need for somebody who can be at least the league average bat, and he is that.
Well, and here's the thing, and I wanted to mention this too, was you missed out on getting Mike Yastrzemski back, but this guy can do a lot of that similar stuff. Now, he probably doesn't have the top end pop that Yastrzemski does have a little bit, but he has a good approach to the plate. He's gonna take a walk. He's gonna hit left-handed when the pitcher's right-handed. I mean, he's a switch hitter. He'll play a solid corner outfield with the speed that he has. I think they definitely filled that spot, and I think they're planning on using Collins in a similar way that they used Yastrzemski last year. I think Collins will play more of an everyday role, but I think they're expecting him to do similar things to what Yastrzemski did last year for this lineup at the end of the year.
Well, that's a great segue into my next question. How do you think he'll fit in with the Royals?
Honestly, great. He plays left, which they obviously need corner outfield help, but he can play some infield as well, which gives them a little bit of flexibility at second base, a place they're still trying to figure out. You know, they honestly don't really know a solution there yet. So, you know, he may end up getting chunks of time at second base as well. I think he fits also. I think this is a great, and I said this to you last night, I think it's a great compliment to the Lane Thomas signing that they did the other day. You know, Thomas can play, you know, he's not a great center fielder, but he can play you center field. He's going to be that more platoon guy. Thomas will be. And then you've got Collins, who is a switch hitter, so he's probably going to be able to play every single day. And because Collins can move around and because Thomas can move around to any part of the outfield, I think that creates a lot of opportunities for both of these guys to play, but certainly for Collins to play. And then you can start picking really good spots for Lane Thomas.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think they're planning on for that everyday left field role. I think they want him in the lineup every day. I think this trade gets done in large part because Connor Dawson is now a hitting coach for the Royals and sort of knows what he thinks Collins can be. I don't think they would have gone after Collins without talking to Connor Dawson, honestly. And so
for sure,
I think I got to assume that like Dawson has a sense that he might even be able to either help Collins repeat what he did last year or maybe even build on it, you know, like, and so I think that that's an idea, everyday hitter, everyday left fielder. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're considering him as an option for the leadoff spot. If they're considering whether it's not, you know, leadoff spot against lefties or something like that. Like, or if like,
If it's going to be, lead off against righties. They're going to let Michael bat lead off against lefties.
yeah, that's what I. Yeah, sorry, switch those. And then I would think like, okay, maybe that's the case, or maybe they're like, we'll consider him, we'll give him a shot in spring training in that leadoff spot to see what he does, and then maybe we can put Michael Garcia, fifth or sixth in this lineup, and that's like, you feel like the run producers are really, it's really a murderer's row of Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez, maybe Carter Jensen, maybe Jack Caglione, and then you hit, Isaac Collins. Like I think they might feel like that's a really ideal situation. That's the thing. His approach fits so very well that I think he could do that sort of thing leading off. Mike, how would you describe Collins' ceiling and his floor? We're hearing a lot about his ceiling and his floor. How would you describe those?
Well, I think his ceiling is pretty close to what last year was for him. It was a really good year. I mean, it was, I think you mentioned it, a rated wins created plus in the 120s.
122.
122. And he was just a really good player last year. I think that's probably his ceiling, 120 to 125, somewhere in there. And then, but I think the floor is pretty high. I think 95 to 100, that's his floor. That's a bad year for Collins, I think. So I think you're getting, and you and I have talked about this. This is things that, well, Milwaukee, honestly, it was a team we used as an example. They don't have an automatic out through the lineup. Those
they don't have any superstars,
small market
and they
teams,
don't have any automatic outs.
Yeah, the ones that are small market teams that compete, they don't have automatic outs. They don't have those black holes. He helps fill that. Even at his floor, he's going to give you a competent at bat that can help a team produce runs.
Yeah, I agree. I think his floor is slightly below league average as a hitter, but his approach won't keep it falling for much more than that. Like the 65, 70 weighted runs created plus seems like well below his floor because that approach is just so good, and so you can count on him swinging at strikes, not swinging at balls, and that's just a huge part of not having that kind of volatility as a hitter. I do think people are sleeping on his upside just a little bit. If you look at his bat speed, it is above league average, and yet his barrel percentage is not, his hard hit rate is not, all his exit velocities are not. These aren't. And you wonder why, and you look at his square up percentage and it's fairly low. And, I did a thing today on his attack angle inside the zone is actually not ideal most of the time. So StatCast now has this stat that can measure the attack angle of a hitter's bat, like when he's making contact with the ball. Okay. And there's an ideal one you want to have between 5 and 20 degrees. On pitches inside the strike zone, which is the ones he swings at most often, he has like a 34% ideal attack rate. The league average is 51%, right? And so you can tell he's not contacting the ball at an ideal angle, right? And that's causing some issues, right? His average launch angle on pitches he swings at inside the strike zone is only 3 degrees. League-wide, it's 10 degrees, right? And so you can see here, he's like, that might be causing some issues in terms of quality contact for him. And so I think there might be potential to unlock that. And then you see some more better power outcomes, right? Better power input. Is he going to be a 170 weighted runs created plus hitter? No, he's not, right? Like, but could he climb to 125 to 130? Potentially, if he unlocked some of that power. Mike, the Royals got Nick Mears in this trade as well. He's the sort of the forgotten name here. What are your thoughts on adding Mears, a righty relief option?
I think he's an interesting guy. He's not necessarily young, but he's not old. I think he's 28 or 29 years old. 29. A 3-pitch righty. He's got a 4-seam fastball that averages like in the 95, a slider, which is his best pitch, and a curveball. So he's kind of a breaking ball heavy guy because those are his best pitches. I think he does need another pitch, but I think that other pitch is going to be mostly important because of the improvement on the fastball. The numbers on the fastball are pretty good. I mean, they're not elite or anything like that, but they're not bad pitch numbers. He's got, I think, an 18 last year. He averaged 18.1 IVB. And that's not terrible. So I think if you can add yourself one more pitch to kind of keep him off of that, maybe it's just a 2-seamer or something like that. And then I think that improves those fastball numbers, and you get even a better year than what he had last year, which for him was actually a pretty solid year. Like he pitched in, I think, 60 some games and threw an ERA just under 4. Improve that a little
Three and a
bit.
half, I think.
You're talking about a really good righty. If you can improve that a little bit with a fourth pitch, I think.
Yeah, just a solid middle relief option. A guy you're probably happy to have. And I guarantee that Brian Sweeney and that crew thinks they see something that they can improve upon. Like they can help him with. Maybe it's a pitch, maybe it's a pitch mix, right? Maybe there's something they can do to improve his command. Whatever. I guarantee they see something they think they can improve upon or work with. And so even if you're just getting what he has been, I think you're happy with it. But the fact that you got a second player in this deal is crazy to me. Anyway, but
this whole
this whole thing is crazy. We're gonna get that here in a second. But I think he has. I think one of the reasons they got him is he's got a really high chase rate, and that's not something the Royals have a ton of. But he also seems like he could be a really good righty specialist. He has big platoon splits over the course of his career. Strikes out nearly 30% of righties he faces, and so. This is just another move towards, like, it's just like league average whiff rates, but that's better than Angel Zerpa, and that's better than some of the other guys in their bullpen. They're just pushing more towards swing and miss in this bullpen, and that seems like what he can do for them. Mike, we've been sort of hinting at it, but let's evaluate this trade here. The Royals had to give up Angel Zerpa, a fairly valuable reliever, for Collins and Mears. What would you give this trade as a grade, and please justify your answer?
As far as value goes, it has to be an A, right? Like it has to be.
I don't see how anyone could see it as anything other than that.
Yeah, right? And I texted with you. I go, please explain this to me. How is this?
And
how does Milwaukee go for this?
There are Brewers fans reaching out to me on Twitter being like, well, he got benched near the end of the season because he was in this slump or whatever. And I'm like, okay, we have a 441 game sample, and what you're pointing to is like a 2-week sample. It's like, even if that's the case, with the information we have, there's just no way to call this anything other than an amazing value win in my mind for the Royals.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's only his floor for the rest of the 5 years, he's more valuable than Zerpa is. And don't get me wrong, I know Zerpa has some value, but Zerpa's going to pitch maybe 50 innings, 60 innings for you.
I have a theory that they may try and convert him back to a starter. That's
and
the only thing that makes
do,
sense
we've
to me.
Seen
That's the
that
only thing that makes
show,
sense.
And I know his stuff has improved since he was a starter and all that sort of stuff. But he's also been in the bullpen. He's had the chance to improve, to ramp up and stuff. Maybe that's not what he is as a starter. I think it's a big shot in the dark if you're the Brewers, honestly.
Yeah, I do too. It's the years of control that may get a big shot in the dark. It's the value of reliever. Like even if they think they can turn Zerpa back into a starter, there's a ton of risk associated with that. And so like odds are he doesn't become a successful starter. He stays what he is, and he's worth less than one F4, less than half an F4 every season, right? Like, and so like in his entire major league career, the last 3 years, Angel Zerpa put up less value than Collins did last year. Right? Like, and so it's tough to see a situation where this is anything other than an A. I mean, it's an A for me as well.
And the fact Royals that they gave up none of that starting pitching depth. None.
Right. They didn't give up any of it. Right. Like, and the fact that they were able to get what they really, really needed, and it didn't cost them Bubic, and it didn't cost them Noah Cameron, and it didn't cost them Cole Reagans. Like, that's incredible to me. Now, that doesn't mean they shouldn't still consider trading Chris Bubic and looking for some other stuff, but it's incredible to me that it didn't cost them some of their starting pitching depth to get what they needed. Nuts. JJ Piccolo, well done, my man. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce they now offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to gain an edge on the football field, basketball court, baseball field.
To be clear, this is for athletes, not Instagram gymfluencers. I tried, but they were uncomfortable with the amount of skin that I was showing in the midsection area. Those shirts are really tight.
Yeah.
I just want to start off here.
Of course, All In Physical Therapy still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently replaced hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
I'm trying to break into the elbow influencing game. It's an untapped market, and you can get a lot of collagen in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from an injury, check out All In Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. Before the Royals added Collins, they waded into the group of free agent hitters by adding veteran outfielder Lane Thomas on a one-year, $5.25 million deal with $100 million in incentives that could bump it to
That's just
6.25.
$1 million, not 100. If you had $100 million in incentives, that would be insane.
Did I say $100 million?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, sorry. With $1 million in incentives, he's never making $100 million to play baseball. But, I mean, he could, but he's just not good enough. Presumably, Thomas will be mostly a platoon option, though if he were able to tap into some of his offensive potential, it's not outside the realm of possibility he could see regular playing time. It sort of depends on what version of Lane Thomas the Royals get. Thomas is a career 99 weighted runs created plus hitter with plenty of speed. He's been a roughly average fielder over the course of his career, though most of that has been in center field, the most difficult outfield position. But the primary motivator behind signing Thomas has been his performance against left-handed pitching. He has a career 135 weighted runs created plus against lefties. Mike, how do you feel about this Thomas signing? Is it a right move for the Royals?
I do like it. And I mentioned earlier, I think it works well with the Collins deal. He can be a fourth outfielder that plays center when needed or in a corner to platoon with Cags. When there's a lefty on the mound, he's going to be in there. I think they're hoping for what they were trying to do with, I'm blanking on his name last year. Who's the righty we signed? Veteran. Signed him to hit lefties, didn't hit anybody last year.
Grichuk.
Yes, Randall Grichuk, thank you. I think they're trying to do what they did with him last year. You're going to try and make sure that you can take pressure off Cags as he's trying to work into his improvement this year, and then also provide somebody who can, hit lefties that isn't the big three, Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, and Michael Garcia. So outside of that, the Royals got nothing against lefties. So he'll be really good there. And, I think there's an opportunity that you get a little bit more. It would not surprise me if there's a month or two that Lane Thomas is playing almost every day at some point.
Yeah, I think if he plays well enough, that it's not going to take too well. Here's the problem: he's not always a real consistent and great defender in center field, and so
I think he'll be playing right if he's doing that, or right and left. I don't think you'll see him.
Either way, I think this is adding another guy who has a great chance of being league average as a hitter. And that's always a good thing. And who has some defensive versatility in that he can play center and both corner outfield positions. I think that's a really valuable thing, and to only get it at $5.25 million, that's not a ton of money. And, it's really a prove it bounce back kind of year for him. He didn't play great last year because of injury. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, this makes a ton of sense. I think ideally for the Royals, Cags hits so well that he can hit every day. Collins hits so well that he can hit every day. And Thomas is mostly like a center field platoon option for Kyle Isbell, is in my mind. But that's ideal.
And to give, those other two guys a day off.
And to give those other guys days off.
Perfect. One thing I think is kind of interesting, just to kind of historically speaking, think about the last time the Royals had a fourth outfielder where you said he at least has the potential to contribute offensively with the bat.
Hasn't happened in a long time. I mean,
they haven't
since
had
Gerard
that
Dyson.
They've had that, defense only center field type a bunch. They had Blanco, kind of a gadget guy to help you get to scrap runs across. But having a guy you went, okay, well, he's only a couple years removed from some really good offensive baseball in this league. Those guys have not been fourth outfielders to the Royals.
Mike, thinking about Thomas and what he might do for the Royals, what do you think his role should be on this team?
I see him, as we said, like as a fourth outfielder who hits against lefties frequently. And then, you'll depending on injury or not, whatever, it just depends on if you let him hit against righties ever. But if you do, it's going to be very selective. It's going to be like, hey, this guy is not the kind of guy he's got reverse splits, or maybe it's like, hey, he doesn't have a devastating slider or breaking pitch away. So today's Thomas can spell somebody out there that we need to. Of course, if there's an injury and he has to play, But if there's an injury and he has to play, I don't feel as bad about his possibility of contributing offensively as I did say a Drew Waters coming up and playing for an extended period of
Right.
time or something like that. So I think it's a very good sign for 5.25 million in just 1 year.
Yeah, and when we think about like depth of the roster, let's say he's the 25th guy on the roster or something like that, right? Or 24th, guy on the roster. You love that the 24th guy on your roster is a guy who a few years ago had like an enormous year and looks like league average might be, right around where he'll land. Like consider that in comparison with like Garrett Hampson and what he was doing at the plate for him. And even Adam Frazier in the year they had him, not last year, but the year before that. Like a lot of times their bench options just are not that good or not good enough to sort of offensively to say, hey, you're going to be fairly consistent when you do play. I think they need some of that consistency, and I think Lane Thomas has a good chance at being that.
Yeah, how about this? He hit 28 home runs in 2023, scored over 100 runs, had an ISO just over 200.
Yeah, he's got the physical ability, that's for sure. Mike, what do you want to see from Thomas to ensure that he maximizes that physical ability, that he maximizes his offensive potential and what he can be for the Royals?
Yeah, I dug through the numbers for this one to kind of see what we were looking at from last year. Now, last year he was hurt a lot. Last year he struggled when he wasn't hurt. But I think one of the things that can help him a lot is remember Mike Moustakas went through a spell where he was just popping the ball up in the infield a ton. Lane Thomas had the pop-ups last year. And
yeah,
so
but he only had like 125 plate appearances.
That is true. But over 20% of those were pop-ups.
Yeah,
and so
that's crazy.
and his line drive rate was the same as it had always been, and his fly ball rate was his line drive rate was super low because of that, but his fly ball rate was about the same as it always was. And so I think if he can level out some of those, get some more line drives from those ones he's been popping up, I think that's something to work on. Really might boil down to pitch selection, might boil down to swing mechanics, something like that. But get back on that track, get back to hitting more line drives, and I think we see a Lane Thomas. I don't know if we see him akin to the 2023 version, but even the 2024 version was, a 99 or 98, somewhere in the high 90s for his weighted runs created plus. And I think if we see that, we're real happy with this deal.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's mostly about like timing. Actually, I think the fact that he was hurt so much of last year, he just never got into a rhythm hitting. Like,
and part of that was plantar fasciitis, and that can be really tough to. And I can't mess with your timing.
Mike knows. What is it, Mike?
It's the silent killer.
It's the silent killer.
Plantar fasciitis. That's how they got Peyton Manning.
It's also how they got you at one point. Remember when you had plantar fasciitis?
I do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you are. I think if he avoids injury this year, he'll be back to his normal output because his timing will be more consistent because he'll have more playing time, more practice time, all that sort of stuff. I hope he just is capable of staying healthy. I think that alone will be the most help to get him back to what we consider a value for the Royals. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxford of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy we do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxford of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
Boy, I can't get enough of that Phoenix Tex-Mex. I am 25% refried bean at this point.
Yeah, that's why you're so jiggly. Eric has repeatedly finished among the top 10 real estate agents in the Phoenix area this year because he gives all of his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxford of West USA Realty, it's not about him. It's about you. He's there to listen to you, work for you, and guide you through the ins and outs of buying and selling in the Phoenix area.
Because you don't want to get stuck next to the pet cemetery. We've seen how that one works out. And
if you're young and you haven't seen how that one works out, watch it. It's crazy scary.
It's scarier than it sounds.
Yes. Find Eric Oxford of West USA Realty online at ericoxford.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in what a life in the Phoenix area might hold, let him make the experience all about you. When the 2025 season ended, a lot of chatter centered on whether or not the Royals would make any key extensions this offseason. Last week, they did just that, signing Mikel Garcia to a 5-year, $57 million contract with a club option for the 6th year. Reports indicate that the contract could be worth as much as or roughly $85 million with the options and all the incentives that are involved. Mike, do you like this deal for the Royals and for Garcia?
I do think it's good for both. The Royals probably get a little bit of a discount because they are gambling on a guy who's got 1 year of good production offensively in this league. Yes, the glove's been good both years, but really with the bat, it's just one. If Garcia continues to play as well as he did last year, then this deal is going to seem like a steal for the last like 3 years. That doesn't even include the option year. It's gonna feel like we stole him for those last 3 years if he does what he did last year for the next two. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously he won't make as much as like market value here
Yeah.
because, they're buying out arbitration years, which would be lower than market value. And so he's like, if you were like, hey, let's pay Michael Garcia exactly what he would get on the open market for last year, he'd be getting $20 million a year, $25 million a year. He was like he had got MVP votes. He finished like 16th or something like that for MVP. He was like insanely good last year. And so, but because of the way that MLB contracts work, they're just buying out ARB years. So I think the AAV is like 10.5 million maybe or something like that. I don't know. My math's not great. But basically something like that as a minimum. But it works out well for both player and team because Garcia gets lifetime wealth and the Royals have a good player for an additional year or two. And this is what people aren't talking about that I think is important. They also get a reputational boost, right? Like that reputational boost comes for obviously players in Major League Baseball, so free agents and stuff. It says, hey, we take care of our guys. But it also sends a message to Latin American prospects and their agents that says, hey, this is a team that if you go through their pipeline and you do well for them, they're going to set you and your family up for generations. And they've done it with 2 Venezuelans now, Garcia, Salvador Perez. And that pipeline is as strong as it is, I think in part because agents know these things. Mike, why do you think Garcia got that extension before, say, a Vinny Pasquantino did?
Well, I think, and I think this one's pretty easy to follow. Garcia seems like the much safer option to give an extension to. He's the better athlete. Athletes with Vinny's body don't exactly age well all the time. So there may be some bias working against my boy, Vinny Pasquantino.
Hate it. Hate the big boy bias.
Hate the big boy bias. But, we saw what happened with Billy Butler, a guy who was a hit-only first baseman. And, Oakland gave him a deal.
To be fair, Vinny's got a good glove.
Vinny does have a solid glove, but, and Vinny's got more power production, I think, than we thought Billy could ever really have. I mean, but, Oakland gave him a deal and he fell off a cliff.
He was out of baseball like 2 years later.
Everybody kind of like looked at that deal and went, Oakland doesn't even give deals to guys like this. What are they doing? But I think, like it or not, Vinny already has that injury history there too. And so Mikel seems like the much safer option here for than a Vinny Pasquantino in many different facets to me.
Yeah, it sucks and it's tough to say, but Vinny Pasquantino's profile typically doesn't age that well, right? He's got some injury history. He's a big guy. So that's tough. It makes it unlikely that the Royals would ever get to a number that Vinny Pasquantino would accept, is what that means, right? Like, because he can wait until he hits free agency and then he's 30 teams. One of them might take a chance on the fact that his body will age and he'll be fine and he'll be fine and still productive after that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Vinny and the Royals find some way of making a deal work out. I mean, I think you can get creative even with him, given his incredible personality and everything. You could say like, hey, we'll also give you a broadcasting role after your career, stuff like that, if they wanted to do something like that. Mm-hmm. But
little handshake.
Yeah, a little handshake deal or something. I just hope that they try and get something done at some point because he's such a team guy. He's such a guy, face of the Royals kind of guy. Obviously, Mike, the Royals have faith in Garcia's offensive breakout from last year. Do you see him taking a step back offensively from that, or do you think that he's just seeing the beginning of his ascendance, and so that contract might actually look pretty team-friendly eventually?
Well, I think he can continue to play well offensively. I don't think there's a lot more room for growth in Mikel Garcia, but I don't think you see him backslide into what he was before last year. You might see a little bit of offensive regression, but I think the approach has improved notably. The ability to pull the ball in the air has improved notably. And I think this is you're not going to quantify this, but I think it's a good point. I think Michael Garcia knows that Michael Garcia belongs and can do this now. And for a lot of guys, it's that confidence. That's kind of the last piece. Once you have that, you belong in Major League Baseball. You can really be a player and an impact on a team. Then that's what you continue to do for as long as your body will hold up. And so I think that's what we're going to see more from Michael Garcia. I don't know that he'll ever be that guy that hits 25 home runs or even 20, but I think he's definitely good enough to be a 115 to 120 weighted runs created plus guy again at some point.
Yeah, I think what we saw last year was true progression, not something that's going to be like, hey, we're going back down
Fleeting.
to the guy who put up a 80 weighted runs created plus the year before or whatever it was. I'm curious to see if he can actually build on it too. Like he built his breakout on an ideology that he still has room to grow in, right? Like, so, hey, he needs to pull the ball in the air more. And yeah, he did that more than he's ever done in his career last year with 16.5% balls air pull rate, right? But that's not elite or anything. He can still improve on that if he wants to. If he just wants to get a little more into the ideology that caused his breakout, he'll improve even further, right? And so I think that that's an option. And I think that it's not impossible that we see some of that as he gets more comfortable with the ideology. Because I think it's not natural to him to be like, I got to pull the ball in the air. I think he's like, I want to spray it all fields kind of guy. But last year is the proving ground that it works really, really well. And it wouldn't surprise me if he sort of leans into that more and more.
I think he can. I agree with you essentially on that, but I think it's that approach that he finally figured out. Something finally clicked with him where he said, hey, I'm only going to hit the ball the other way if I'm really down in the count, if the ball is in the outer half, if I'm adjusting to a fastball that I wasn't ready for. Like, I think he was more of a advantageous situation. I know exactly what I'm doing. Can he create more of those advantageous situations as he gets more comfortable in Major League Baseball and seeing more pitchers? I think that would be really, really neat to see.
And as the challenge system comes into place, don't forget about that.
Yeah,
I think he's one of the players on the Royals who's going to benefit the most from it. He's got such a good eye. He seemingly gets screwed all the time by bad calls, all the time. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just A Bit Outside segment where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, we haven't done this in quite a while. It's been like 5 weeks since we had an episode. I hope you've been storing up some of these to talk about. What is your no, of course not. He doesn't ever think about this except in the moment when we're doing it. And so, Mike, what happened to you this last month or so?
Well, I've been watching a new show, so I thought I'd bring it to the forefront because there is one very interesting aspect of this show. Nothing else about it is interesting.
In Mike's continuing series called Sitcoms I Ignore.
Yeah. So I talk a lot about sitcoms I like to ignore, and I'm going to go with another one today. Superstore, which I know you can find on Hulu. It got like a 6-season run, so this isn't some sort of bum show, but nobody talks about it as one of the greatest sitcoms of all time or it being special or anything like that, like your Parks and Rec or your Seinfeld, things like that. But it's an interesting sitcom to me because of this. The two leading people in that show are, to me, by far the least funny people on the show. Like, there's these two people who, since the beginning of the show, have, they're the ones that are supposed to get together and they're the romantic interests of the show. And one of them is America Ferrera. She's probably, I guess, the most famous person on the show. But neither one of them are very funny. Like, it's the side characters that carry the show in comedy. And so
I feel like this is a common thing, though. I mean, think about like, I just had one in my mind. I can't remember. But like Parks and Rec, like
Amy Poehler is the funniest person on that show.
No, she's not. Nick Offerman's funnier. On that show.
No, you're insane.
Maybe not. Sorry, I'm looking back now and I'm thinking, yeah, you might be right.
She
actually,
was that show.
about it. She was great. But
Julia Louis-Dreyfus is that show.
And those
they had good side characters on
but
the
like
show.
Big Bang Theory, like originally, that show aired for 12 years, and it's like the most watched sitcom when it was on. And But the Leonard Penny thing, they quickly abandoned that to focus everything on Jim Parsons and his brilliant performance. And so, yeah. But yeah.
But anyway, Superstore. It's a great show to ignore, especially when the two most the leads are on the screen. You can kind of tune out for that part.
That's wonderful. Mike goes second screen experience and just tunes out every scene they're in. I'm talking about something that I participated in yesterday, and that's an office holiday party, right? And so many of you will know you go to office holiday parties or a partner's office holiday parties.
You make a photocopy of your ass night and you get out.
Yeah. Just to leave your mark on the company, but I went yesterday, and I have some advice for like people who plan these things. Number one, do not schedule these in an outdoor venue in December. Okay. Like it was freezing last night.
So you guys are at Topgolf, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I like Topgolf and I like swinging clubs and but it was so cold. It was so cold last night. The heaters could not keep up. Okay. The heaters couldn't keep up. So that's one thing, but that's neither here nor there. My other thing is don't cheap out on us, companies. Don't cheap out on us.
Not the company you were there. I mean,
get a dessert. Get something for dessert for your people. You're ordering this food or whatever, just get dessert. You're getting just get some cookies. I mean, how much are cookies? The fact that you don't have a dessert at a holiday party just seems wrong to me. But anyway, that's a little 2 cents on office holiday parties. I don't want to be freezing next year, please. That's all we have for you this week. Hopefully, actually, I don't know when we'll come back. We'll come back at least in a month. But if some more news breaks, maybe we'll come back with a breaking news episode or something like that. If you want to hear more of us, if you want to hear us weekly, go ahead and subscribe to that Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. You can hear, we're going to come out with an episode then on Wednesday. So for those paid Substack subscriber, we'll see you Wednesday. For everybody else, we'll see you sometime soon. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.